Halo Spartan Assault is a top-down twin-stick shooter developed by 343 Industries and Vanguard Entertainment. The game was originally released on the Xbox platforms and Windows 8 platforms as well. However, it has just recently been released onto Steam, allowing more PC gamers to gain access to this game. This is not the first time that the Halo franchise has gone off of its roots of being a first-person shooter, as if you may recall, Halo Wars decided to try to bring the game into the RTS genre, and the results of that were questionable. Spartan Assault is a good attempt of 343 to try to get Halo into the top-down twin-stick shooter genre. However, it is not a genre that the game really is meant to be played in. Sure, the game feels like a Halo game when you go in and you have all the Halo weapons and you can drive all the Halo vehicles. However, it just doesn't do the same amount for me that the other Halo games have, and I would much rather see a sequel to, I don't know, Halo 4, but, you know, we'll get what we get soon enough. If you're like me, one of the main reasons you play Halo is for the lore. Unfortunately, Spartan Assault's storyline isn't that great. It revolves around the whole game being a simulation on the Infinity, and it follows the gap between Halo 3 and Halo 4 in trying to explain how the Covenant and the humans are at war again, and overall it's not that great. It revolves around Spartan Palmer and Spartan Davis and their events before the big next war happens. However, it just doesn't work that well. It's told through cutscenes, and that's really it. That's all the story you're gonna get. The gameplay doesn't really revolve around the lore. You could pretty much play the game and you wouldn't need to know the story because the story is basically non-existent. Gameplay-wise, Spartan Assault plays like a Halo game if it was a top-down shooter. There's lots of weapons that you can choose from, and really lots of combat options that you can use. The gameplay of the first-person shooter games is still met within Spartan Assault, as you still have your two-weapon system, your regenerative shields, and when you're on foot you can pick up any weapon you want and you can instantly use it, and you basically can do anything that you could do in the first-person shooter games in Spartan Assault. However, it's just a different viewpoint that you have to take into consideration. Vehicle combat in the game is kind of difficult in certain cases. When you're trying to drive a tank with the mouse and keyboard, you'll probably find yourself struggling a little with the steering and with the combat itself, as it is a little bit difficult to get used to controls with the tanks and other vehicles. However, once you do get the ability to start driving those around and start getting used to it, they're extremely fun to use. For this game, you can use either the mouse and keyboard, a touch screen, or a controller. I personally recommend using a mouse and keyboard if you can, as it seems the controller is way too clunky for what it is, and really a touch screen for any sort of game really doesn't work that well, especially if it's going to have some sort of mapped joystick that you should be using anyway. Before each mission, you're given a slight text briefing, and this just kind of tries to advance the storyline a bit, but it's really optional if you want to read it. Again, going back onto the storyline, it's not very necessary to have it. Before each mission, you can change your loadout type if you wish. Each mission can be completed with the default loadout type. However, if you have enough experience points, you can buy power weapons in order to make the level a little bit easier on yourself. After each mission, you are graded on how well you've performed, and you have your bronze, silver, and gold star, as the game keeps score of your kills, your medal counts, and various other stats that you have achieved throughout the mission. Unfortunately, the game is a little bit on the short side. There are only 30 missions, and each mission won't take you more than 10 minutes to do if you do it correctly on the first try. I spent a total of 4 hours on my first playthrough. However, I had died several times on several very infuriating missions, and I would like to bring up a point that I wish that this game had a checkpoint system. Even though that the levels are short and small, once you get into a certain situation and it's a really difficult mission, and you die at the last second and you have to start all over from the beginning, it does make it a little bit annoying to have to go and play through it several times until you understand what you have to do in order to complete the mission. The game ran at a smooth 75 frames per second. It seemed to actually be locked at this, as it did not go up to 120. However, it really didn't seem to make a difference, as the game ran very smoothly, and I don't think that the frame rate in this case was very necessary to complain about. Overall, the game is a good time waster. You're not going to be spending lots of time on this game. The game is only $5 on Steam right now, and if you want a distraction that'll keep you occupied for a couple hours for something that costs less than a burger, then go ahead and pick up Spartan Assault, but you really won't be missing out on it. Even if you're a big Halo fan and you want to know the lore, it's not going to make that much of a difference within it, because it really doesn't still tell the gap between Halo 3 and Halo 4 that well, other than, well, we wanted to make more money. Some of the missions in the game can be quite infuriating, especially if you have to do them over and over and over again. However, it's not that difficult of a game. The difficulty curve slightly goes up towards the end of the game, but you can still probably blow through it pretty easily. If you're looking for a pretty good time waster, Halo Spartan Assault may be able to fill that void. However, you're not going to be missing out if you don't pick this one up.